So what is that next we saw? So we created, okay, this I covered. We created tables. So we have different statements. I'll go directly here. Okay, these are the tables. These are RDBMS, MySQL, MS SQL, Oracle, Teradata. Non-RDBMS are Hadoop, MongoDB, Firestore, Firebase. So we have different statements. DDL. DDLs are the one which is used to create the database, like tables, functions, view, SP, and trigger. So if I go to this database, I right click, okay, there is no create, it is not enabled. So I can create a table using create table name. For that, I need to go to the documentation. I have the query, yeah. So this is the one. So this is a DDL, data definition language. We are defining how the tables or database structure, the data types, those are going to be. So create table name, the columns, the data type of the columns, whether it is not null or not. If there is any comment, we can give the comment. This is internal purpose. And the engine, this is not mandatory. It's going to take the default engine. So I can use these statements to create a tables. So this comes under DDL. So if you want to know how, what is the syntax of this, whatever database you are going to deal in your project, you have to go to the documentation. Let us say you are going to deal with MS SQL. That's the most used database across the world after MySQL. MySQL being a lightweight, every web project uses MySQL. If I'm going to use MS SQL documentation, okay, there is a documentation. You can download the server here. Again, the Express edition, which is a free version. Okay, SQL Server documentation. There it is. Documentation. SQL. Microsoft SQL Server documentation. SQL Server 2019. Okay, what is there? If you spend some time into the site, we can get the documentation. I can show you the MySQL documentation, which is what we frequently use. Most of the times we use. So they provide clear instruction on how to create a MySQL reference manual. They provide a clear instruction on how to create a table, how to create a, how to insert a rows, how to delete a rows, all those. Creating and using a database. So creating and selecting a database, creating a table. If you go here, so if you give show tables, they give clearly like what it is going to return. If you show tables, it will show me all the tables which I have created. And yeah, so the create table syntax I was telling, create table name, the columns, and the data types. So there is a beautiful and detailed documentation. So we have created 4 tables. When I run this query, it is coming. So you can use this documentation to know the syntax. So that is a create syntax that is used to create tables, functions, store procedures, views. Next is a drop. This is used to drop, delete an object from the database. Let us say I want to drop a table. I'll create a table as dummy. I'm not going to use this table for any purpose. I will just give name and int, and I'll save it. Now if I want to drop this table, I have to go drop table because I want to drop a table. If I want to drop a store procedure, that's a different syntax. And what is the table name? It is dummy. Here it is dummy. Drop table dummy. If I'm going to execute this will drop 0 rows affected and this table will be dropped. If I refresh my database, where is refresh? That table is dropped. So that is the use of drop. And to alter the database, we use alter. Truncate is to truncate the rows in a database. Suppose we have, let us say I have three rows in this payment table. Now I want to truncate this table. We have two options to delete the rows. One is delete, other is truncate. Truncate. The only difference is if I am going to delete a table, if we see this table, alter table, if we go to the keys, indexes, foreign key, advanced. Okay, if we see here, this table is not having a primary key. Okay, let's create one. Primary key, whether it is auto increment, yes. But why 123 payment ID? I go to advanced. Here I can do an auto increment and I save it. Okay, I'll show you now. So let us say I am inserting one more record, paid 500. Now if I go to this table, alter table, advanced, okay, somehow it is not set. I don't have permission. The difference between delete and truncate is delete will just delete this row. It will not reset the auto increment, which means the primary key. But truncate is going to delete the rows and reset the primary key or the auto increment to the original value. If it is 0 means 0, 1 means 1. So that is the use of truncate and delete. Next is a comment which is used to add comments to a database, and rename is to rename the database. So these are all DDLs, which is data definition language. Then we have a DML, which is data manipulation language, which is nothing but inserting data, updating data, and deleting a data. So inserting a data means inserting a data to the table. Let us say I want to insert a record into this table. If I go here, I'll get the query. So there it is. Insert into table name. What are the columns and what are the values? Here I can fill out my own values like what is today? Thursday 1, and is active is true. And the user ID is an auto increment. I'll delete this. I will not insert this. So this is a Okay, right syntax, there is a comma. Okay, if I insert this, one row is affected. If I go into the table, I should be able to see that one row. So this is a DML, data manipulation. We are inserting data. We can also update on deleted data. Let us say I want to update this particular row. I want to update the name to Thursday 2. Then I have to update using user ID, that is the primary key. So what I will do, update table T001 user, set name equal to, what is the column? It's name only, right? Username. Set username equal to Thursday 2, where I have to update using 9. So for a record which has a user ID as 9, I want to update to Thursday 2. So where user ID, user underscore ID equal to 9. If I run this query, okay, update table, table. So update, instead of table, I will try this. Update, okay. So update the table name, set username equal to this. When I go to the table and I refresh, the data has been updated. So this is a DML, data manipulation. The same way I can delete a row. If I want to delete the row which I inserted, I can delete using this identifier 9. So 9 is the primary key which is pointing to that particular row. So delete from T001 user where user ID equal to 9. So if I run this query, one row affected. So the last row the ninth row, whichever has this ID as 9, that would be deleted. That is deleted. So that's a DML. Next we have the DQL, data query language. Data query language is nothing but a select. I want to select records. Select start from T001 user. This is going to select and bring me the records. So this is a DQL, data query language. Next is DCL, which is data control language, which is the grant and revoke, which we will not use. The database administrator will provide access. For executing a query, viewing a tables, all those things, granting access and revoking the access is called DCL. Then we have the TCL, which is transaction control language. This is used to control whether the transactions can be committed, whether the rollbacks are nothing but, let us say I did a transaction. When I say I did a transaction, I did an insert query. I did an insert statement and I have inserted this value, new value 9. For the new value to be saved into the database, we need a commit to happen. Without commit, the value will not be stored in the database. It would be temporarily available. So we can control whether a commit is allowed to the database, whether a user is allowed to commit a transaction. So when a commit happens, rollback is like undo, Control Z. I can roll back the last transaction. It is the same like Control Z, which we have. And save point is a point where it is a snapshot. In the Microsoft OS, we take a snapshot of the server, like whatever. At a particular point of time, we take a snapshot. That is what a snapshot is. Save point, and the set transaction is. We have few characteristics of the transaction, so we can set those things for the transactions. You just need to know. You will not use these most of the time. You will use always DCL and DML. Okay, but one question which might come is, why should we read these things when I'm not using any of these statements, right? I'm just going ahead and I'm doing this. Thursday to I'm not writing a query to save into the database. It is completely UI friendly, and even to view a database, I'm not writing a query. So people might ask, like, why should I study these things? The reason is, in a dev environment, you have full flexibility and you are allowed to view a database. You can directly go and change the column, change the value. But when it goes to production database are usually not given UI access. Production database usually has to be touched using the queries. So when an application is in production and you want to change the data, let's say by mistake there is a wrong data and you want to change it, the administrator will ask you the DML, provide me the script, provide me the update script and insert script. So that time you should know how do I write an update script. Even though I mean Google is there, but at least you should know how to read the statement and insert the values wherever it is required. So that is the reason it is better to know these statements. So then we saw how to do a select query of one table and how to do a select query of two table joins. So we saw a schema builder where it is not this one. I think this one. Yeah, a schema designer where we can drag drop the table and this would show us all the relationships of the table among the tables, whatever is. So if you see one to many, the user is having one to many relation with the language. The user is having one to many with the address and the payments. So these things we saw, and we saw how to write a inner join, left join, and right join. So joins are nothing but linking two tables. Inner joins are nothing but the records between the two tables would be coming up. Left joins are the one where the left table will be kept as a standard and all the records from the right table will come up. Right joins are the one where right table will be kept as standard and the left table records will be coming up. We saw a detailed example of how to use the inner joins, left joins, and right joins yesterday. Okay, so after this, we will see, of course, I don't have an access to create the database. I managed to create something in remote, but we will see how to create a stored procedures. Before that, yesterday I was telling how to create a view. Views are, I will see, I don't, okay. So when, let us say there is a scenario where we want a table's read-only access to be provided to a user, meaning the user should not be able to write any data or update or modify any data. Instead, he only needs to see the data. That case, we call it as view. If you see here, there is a specs icon, which means it is only a view. So the syntax to create a view is create view schema name and database, I mean table name as no schema name dot view name. This is the view name as whatever query we need to give, we can give here. So I can give here select star from T001. If I give this, if I execute this, a view will be created. I don't have access. The grant is not given for me because this is a free edition. So once you run this, a view will be created here, like how we have a expandable option here. A view will be there. To select from a view, we just need to use it. We have to treat it like a table. Select star from test view. In this case, test. If you do this, this select query will be executing and the output will come up as a read-only option. The user cannot edit it. This is what view is. I'll just make a note of it. Okay, so that is views. Okay, next is we have a functions. Functions are same like a Java, PHP, .NET, Python, whatever language you take, JavaScript or Angular, any function, even C++, C, that same as here. So it is a small piece of code which is going to run, which can be called anywhere, and which will be returning a value. It will take an input and it can return a value. So that is called a function. So we have a option to create a function. So let us say we want to convert a date to a specific format. We will write it as a function and keep it. Wherever needed, we will be calling that function and the date would be converted correspondingly. So that is the use of a function. Okay. Next is we have a trigger. Triggers are something. I'll show you. Okay, triggers are something like if you see here before, after, insert and update. So let us take an example. I want, let's say there is an insert in the user table. Okay, let us say there is an insert here. I want automatically an insert to be done in the payment table as 0. Without user creating this, I want automatically to be done. In that case, the triggers will help us. Let me see if I have access to create a trigger. No, I don't have a. Okay, so I can create, I think. So let us see. I'll right click this, create a trigger for this table. I'll give T001 trigger. For each row, begin. What I will do, I have to insert a record in the payment table. I'll take an insert script from the payment table. And for each row in the user table, insert into payment. The payment ID is a primary key. I will delete this. Payment status is open. Amount is, I'll make it as 0. And user ID will be empty. And let us say I want this. Okay, I'll try this. I'll do this user not user ID. If I give a trigger like this, you have an error. After insert, I'll use after insert. Okay, you do not have super privilege. Anyways, I don't have permission. So a trigger is if I create like this. So after insert into T001 user table, I want an insert to be done automatically into the payment table. In this case, a trigger will always be active in the database side. As soon as I enter a row here in the user table, immediately there will be a row inserted into the payment table. So that is what trigger is. Any questions so far?
No, Rajesh.
Okay. So if you go through the previous videos, then you'll be able to link this and understand as a single unit, because data, as I said earlier, yesterday also I mentioned this, database is not something which can run on its own. Everything depends on the other piece of code. Core Java cannot run on its own. It needs a UI. So we have a JSP, HTML, or ASP.NET, ASPX page, or PHP page. The same way, page cannot run on its own. So it needs a middle layer, which is Java, PHP, .NET, Python, or whatever it is. And both of these also cannot run together. So they need a backend. So all the three, we call it as three-tier architecture. All the three, UI, business logic, and the database, consist of a web application. So you have to understand everything as a single unit rather than taking up, okay, this is a UI, HTML, there's no link between the other two. It's not like that. It's always better to read it as a single unit. So next is, we went through functions, we went through triggers, correct. So next is, we have the events. I'll not go through, mostly you'll not use. It is similar to triggers. We will go through stored procedures. Suppose SP, we call it as SP, or the stored procedures. The suppose I have an, I need to insert one row into this table. After this insert, I need to insert into an address table. After the address, I have to update the language table. So let us say we have a sequence of steps to be followed. Step 1 is do into this table. Step 2 is do into this table based on the first insert. Step 3 is update this table. Step 4 is delete this table. So if we have a series of steps to be performed, then the stored procedures are the best thing you can use it. So what you have to do, we can actually we can provide a list of steps that has to be followed in the store procedure. We give a test. If you see here, create procedure, procedure name. It can take an input argument, begin and end. Inside the begin and end, you can give as much as you want. You can give as many SQL statements as you want. You cannot run multiple SQL statements as a single manually. So stored procedure helps in executing multiple SQL statements one by one after another in a sequential order, depending on the need. So one example, one live example on use of the stored procedure is during payroll processing. So let us say when the payroll is getting processed, what will happen? First, your LOPs will be calculated. First, your leaves will be deducted. Then the LOPs will be calculated. From the LOP, your earning will be updated after applying the LOP. Once that is done, then we are going to uh, uh, okay, after applying the LOP, then the master payroll will start. Meaning all your payroll component, your IT calculation, everything will trigger in. After the IT calculations, the HRA calculation and the PF, ESI, all these things are done. The actual will be updated, and finally a report table will be populated. So we have nearly 6 to 7 steps which is involved in a payroll processing. So these 6 to 7 steps cannot be run manually. This will involve, let's say, like 10 queries. So these 10 queries cannot be run manually every time a payroll is being processed. So what we do, we provide them, we bundle them as a single SP, stored procedure, and we give it in a, we create as a SP, and we give it, we call it from the Java program. So what happens when a single stored procedure is called, all the select statements, all the statements will be getting executed. Select, insert, update, whatever we use in the order, that is a business logic. So the stored procedure is an equivalent to a Java program which is having a business logic of its own. So that is what a stored procedure is. So the live example is in the payroll processing, and it is used for executing multiple statements. It is used for multiple statements. So that is the stored procedures. Now, after the stored procedures, okay, that's all on the database side. So if you know how to create a table, create a table, alter a table, drop a table, and you know how to create, update, delete, truncate, and drop a query, a row in a table, and store procedures, functions, and triggers, and views, you are done. 99% in the live projects, you will be using only these things. So next, I want to take some time and educating on something less important, but it is better to know when you have a database, how database stores all these information. This these informations are provided or available in a information schema. So this is not a schema which we will be using, but this will give you all the information about the database which is storing. So if I go to tables, if you can see, there are many tables inside the information schema: characters, text, clients, columns, engines, and we have one for store procedures also. I can show that. Routines. Routines are the store procedures. Tables, triggers. So whatever we saw there, views, everything is here. So this is how the database internally stores it. If I'm going to open up one of this table, then we can see that this is containing the information of all the schemas, the table schema name, the table name, and table type, engine, all these are there. If you can see here, the table which I have created also has come up here. I have created nearly 4 tables. All those 4 tables have come up here. That's a base table. It has its own data and row length, what's the average row, data length, much it is, the index is occupying, what is the auto increment. So all these things are available here. This would be useful to debug, to identify the tables, identify some, if there is a mistake which is happening, we can identify these. And we can go to the schema. This will show all the schemas which is only 2 schemas are there. You can see here, this is one schema, this is another schema. So 2 schemas. If I go to columns, I can see all the columns across all the tables. I'll remove this limit row. Okay, there are 782 rows here. So in the table schema, we have these many rows. Let's go to our schema which we created. You see here, all the schemas and all the tables which we have created, these columns are stored in this way in a column table, and the position of the column. If I open up one of the table, user table, I have, okay, that is gone. I have to open in a new tab. Okay, it is not opening multiple tabs. Okay, but if we see here, the user table is having, we created 3 columns: user ID, username, and is active. So all these are coming up in this table. So I can see the order, I can see the nullable. So whatever we gave as a table attribute, everything is shown here, and the privileges which I have here. So all these are coming up. The same way I can see the rows, uh, the routines. Routines are the stored procedures. Actually, it is not available. I don't have an. I cannot create one, so we cannot use this. I showed the table. I showed the table statistics. It will show the space which is utilized. Of course, I don't have access. The user privileges. Currently, there is only one schema, so we have this. So the routine usage, we don't have an access, but this gives you at high level a place to debug, a place where you can see about the tables, a place about views, store procedures, function. We don't have these options in this one. So I don't have access, but otherwise you can view these things from here, and this will be a good place for you to debug. So that is about the information schema which I wanted. So now, how is it going to be linked with the Java? Since we saw basics of the table, joins, so all those things, index and primary keys. The main thing which yesterday I said was the relationships, one to many, many to one. That is what we will be studying more. We will be applying a lot in the Java in Spring Boot and Hibernate. So when we take this table, user table, it is a one to multiple relationship. One record in user table will have multiple record in language table. One record in user is going to have multiple in the payments table. If we see the other way, many records in language will have one record in the user table. So that is the one to many and many to one relationship. So when we apply it in the Java side, what will happen? Let us take this scenario. I have a screen. Let us say I have a web page. In the web page, I am collecting the user level informations like username, what is there, what is whether they are active or not, their date of birth, all those things, and I collect their address here. I give a place to enter address 1. I also give an address option to enter address 2, which is the temporary address and the permanent address. This web page, if you take and link it with the table, we have this section as user table T001 user. This will be stored in user table name. This will be stored in T002 address. This will be stored in T302 address. So a single web page where we capture the user information of username and active status, and we capture like address 1, address 2. We can also capture multiple address here like address 1, address 2, address 3. So all these we need to store into a database. That would be our requirement. To store into a database, if we now link this with the diagram which we have and the table structure, we see that the user level data or the user related data are captured only once, but the address related data for that particular user is captured more than once. So we have a single user and multiple address. When we store into the database, we will pass on the user level and we will pass on the address level to the Java side. We will be passing multiple address in this case because we have more than one address field. Of course, not all may have a value, but we will be passing multiple values. So when we store into the database, we set a one to many relation, one user to multiple address. So in Java, we rely on Hibernate. That is the ORM framework which we will be studying next week. So we capture this data from the page, we set it in the ORM framework, Hibernate, and we store it into the database. In that case, the user related information will be stored in the user table. The multiple addresses will be stored in the address table as multiple rows. That is why if we see the user row here, the user data is 1. But for this one, we have multiple addresses. We have 2 to 3 addresses. This is one to many and many to one. Let me open this. So if you see here, the address one is for user one, we have only one address. I can add. Yesterday maybe I deleted the record. So for user one, I will add user one second address. So this is allowed. So if you see, I'll order it. So one user is having more than one address. That is the use of many to one and one to many. So with this, the basics of database are done. Uh, I will share the sample questions on the database, which you can work it out if you have some time, and you can let me know if you have a questions. For today, do you have any questions on like whatever we discussed so far?
No, Raj.
No, for now.
Yeah.
Okay then. So the database side is over now. So we'll pause for today with this because that is the next topic is a fresh topic, and if I start, it would be I don't have a sufficient time now. So let's pause for this for today, and tomorrow being a Friday, I will start the fresh topic because before we enter into the weekend, usually we go into a new topic on Fridays. So
Mhm.
tomorrow I'll start on the Hibernate side. So we'll be coming back to Java after a 1 week of time in the database side. Tomorrow we'll restart with the Java side, and we'll touch basics on the Hibernate, which will be going over the next week completely.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Yeah.
Okay then. Yeah. So thank you for joining today.
Thank you,
Meet you
Rajesh.
tomorrow. Bye bye.